Hello, this is Maxine Hoover with the Beryl Consulting Group. Today we're here with Peter Cecchini of the Axonic Capital Group. So, Peter, where do you see the economy in the next 3 to 6 months?
Well, it's a very interesting time in the economy and markets, and there's obviously a reflexive relationship between the two. Um, Obviously, there's been much talk of inflation, and inflation, remains above the Fed's 2% target. It's at 3%, and we've seen some creep in recent months back above 3%. So I am concerned that inflation is going to remain fairly persistent. I'm also concerned that the labor market has started to slow and will continue to slow. And it's interesting in Chairman Powell's press conference, and even in his prepared remarks for that matter, he talked a lot about that. He said, look, the Fed's in a difficult position because we see the economy slowing somewhat or the labor market weakening somewhat, and inflation has remained sticky, in part because of tariffs, but also because of structural changes to the economy. And that puts the Fed in a really interesting and difficult spot.
And how do you see the Fed policy response to the conditions that you foresee?
Well, I think, the circumstances that I just described um, are sort of akin to what some people might refer to as stagflation. I'm hesitant to use that term because that evokes a very specific period of time in the 1970s. But I do see something that looks and feels a little bit like that. So the Fed will hesitate, in our view, to raise rates in the near term. Over the longer term, though, what stagflation will often do is create a slowdown in the economy. And in response to the slowdown in the economy, the Fed will be forced to cut rates a little bit more quickly, I think, than markets expect, maybe in 6 to 9 months.
And where do you see investment opportunities in that environment?
Well, obviously, in the environment we foresee, we're looking for defensive positioning and safety. And in particular, private credit is a great place to be, whether it's on the corporate side or in commercial real estate. At Axonic, we have a very well-developed commercial real estate effort. And in fact, we're well sort of positioned to respond to the maturity wall in commercial real estate, which we foresee. And we're also well positioned to take advantage of opportunities we see for both companies and liquidity provision for individuals in private credit. Specifically, one of the interesting things we see, um, private equity funds have been very slow to distribute. Uh, Something called the DPI, which is the distribution to private paid-in capital, pardon me, has fallen from point 0.8 from point 0.6 to from point 0.8 to point 0.6. And as such, investors in private equity are forced now to look for other liquidity provision, and we actually provide that through our private investment liquidity solutions business.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Peter,
Thank
for
you.
an amazing talk with us today. And thank you for tuning in to Beryl Elites.